Good afternoon, students. I hope all of you are doing good and I hope your preparation is going fine. Welcome to today's Analyst. This is 17th of December 2023 and we are here to discuss important articles from The Hindu and The Indian Express. Now, the handout for this session is there in the description box. You may utilize it to streamline your current affairs preparation. Now, coming to the table of contents. The first and a very important topic is related to India's textile sector and the overview around it. Second topic is related to the demand of caste census in our country. Third topic is related to foreign exchange reserves of India. Fourth topic is related to the developed country goal of our country. And the last but not the least topic is related to Election Commission of India. So coming to the first topic. So let's start with the first topic. The first topic is related to India's textile sector. Now, why this is in news is because India's textile sector has been affected due to declining exports, flat wages and variety of other reasons. Now, why it is important for our syllabus? For our General Studies Paper 3, Indian Economy section, this textile sector and the overview related to it becomes important. So let us first try to understand that why India's textile sector is so significant, and that we'll be understanding through the help of various statistics. So first statistic, that is textile sector's compounded annual growth rate has been 28%. So 28% has been the compounded annual growth rate of the textile sector, which is very, very huge. And its share in India's GDP is close to 2%. So share of textile sector in India's GDP is close to 2%. And textile export share in the overall exports of India is 11.4%, which means that in exports also, textile sector has been playing a very important role. In India's GDP also, textile sector has been playing a very pivotal role. And also the textile sector also gives us a very promising future and a way ahead. Also in relation to the employment, that is the direct employment. We are not talking about the indirect employment, but the direct employment created by the textile sector, it is close to 45 million workforce. So 45 million people are being directly employed by the textile sector. And this particular sector in India is estimated to be close to $150 billion, which is again very, very huge. Out of that $150 billion, the $40 billion valuation of the India's textile sector is through the exports. So our exports, a large chunk of our exports constitutes of this textile sector of our country. That is why it becomes very, very crucial. But as we saw in the news, that the textile sector in India has been facing a lot of different challenges. Because of it, it has not been able to perform that well to which we expected, right? So let's see what are the various challenges concerning this textile sector. The first challenge is related to environmental impact. Of course, the textile sector, it requires high water, it requires high energy consumption, and also it uses various chemicals in the textile production. So because of these reasons, environmentally it is having a pretty negative impact. And that is one of the challenge concerning textile sector. Second big challenge is related to labor issues. Now, because of the poor working conditions, because of the low wages paid to the employees, to the workers, to the laborers, and also because of the lack of workers' rights, because most of the textile apparels industry, it's a part of the unorganized sector. That is why the working conditions are not defined. They are poor. The wages are very low. There is lack of workers' rights as well. So because of these reasons, there are various labor issues as well. So if workers are not happy, of course, industry or any of the setup would not be able to prosper. Third is technology adoption. So technology adoption in textile sector in particular is a little bit slow. And that is why it hampers the efficiency and competitiveness of textile sector of our country. Now, one very big important issue is concerning the supply chain. That is how the supply chain in this textile sector is working. And for you to know that supply chain in textile sector is a bit fragmented. That is, supply chain is not integrated in the best possible way. So it is fragmented. And that leads to inefficiencies in working as well, inefficiencies in the production as well, and ultimately coordination challenges also exist. Because of this also, textile sector has been performing poorly in our country. Now also one more thing is global competition, especially from the Asian countries only, or the South Asian countries only. Why? Because other countries are having lower production cost as compared to India. And because they're having lower production cost, the market share of India India's textile industry in the entire world, it has been lowering down considerably. Now, that is also a point of challenge for us. Now, quality control. Now, this is an issue in which a lot of emphasis is put on by a lot of experts. That India's textile sector, the quality control, the quality check is not very pertinent. It's not very efficient. So there is inconsistent quality standards. This has been the charge levied by many of the experts, that quality standards concerning the textile sector, the production of textiles, clothing in our country is not good. So the quality standards are inconsistent. And this will eventually hinder the sector's reputation in the global market. And eventually the global competitiveness of India's textile sector will lower down. So quality control, that is also a very, very big issue. Now, policy and regulatory challenges. Now, policy and regulatory challenges, for example, complex regulations, frequent policy changes, they also pose a hurdle. Now, see, I'll tell you a few things. In this preparation of yours, or especially in the mains answers, whenever you are writing challenges or solutions, so point like these, for example, policy regulatory burden, or let's say complex regulatory environment, or red tapeism, bureaucracy, corruption, these points act as a potato, right? So for example, you can use these points at any place if you're writing challenge for any of the sectors. But my question is, will that fetch you good enough marks in your mains examination? The answer is no. So if you directly use these terms, for example, policy and regulatory challenges, will it fetch you good enough marks? No. Why it will not fetch you good marks? Because until and unless you give a substantiation of it, that how regulatory and policy challenges are there, how there is complex regulatory environment, just by writing that the regulatory environment is complex will not fetch you marks. So substantiation is the most important thing in your mains examination as well. So make sure whenever you are writing points in your answers, you substantiate each point. So all of the points which we have discussed, what your work should be, that if environmental impact is there, how much environmental impact? That is what you need to write in mains in order to get an edge from your competitors. You need to write these things. Of course, labor issues as well. I hope this is very clear. Now, access to finance. Now, just by writing access to finance, and access to finance is not there, will not fetch you good enough marks. You need to tell that why this lack of access to finance is a hindrance and how it is a hindrance. Maybe through a statistics, maybe through a report, maybe some data, maybe some committee report, anything, but you need to substantiate that point. So access to finance for small, medium sector enterprise, of course, for them, it's very difficult. It's very hard to secure loans, hard to secure credit as well. That is why they go for informal sector lending as well. I hope this is clear. Skill gaps. Now, this is again a very important issue for our country, that most of the people in our country are not skilled, right? And most of the labor force in our country is not skilled. So lack of vocational education is there. Now, shortage of skilled labor and inadequate training program, of course, will impact the overall productivity. And last but not the least is the market trends. So you have to understand one thing, that textile sector is such which is very directly related to the fashion trends. So fashion trends in this day and age keeps on changing regularly. Every day you will see some new fashion coming up. So in this rapidly changing environment, the textile industry also have to keep up to the pace. So consumer preferences are changing on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. What it requires is that textile sector should be adaptable. So adaptability for sustained success is very, very essential in the textile sector. I hope this is very, very clear to all of you. So these challenges we have discussed. Now the solution for these challenges, I would like to discuss one initiative by the government in the textile sector. That initiative is very, very important. But before studying coming to that initiative, we'll come to that how textile sector in our country is divided. So first of all, this is the textile sector. Now, two kind of fibers are used. Of course, you all know, natural fibers and man-made fibers. Now, natural fibers, of course, includes your wool, jute, silk, cotton. And then your man-made fiber, of course, it includes rayon, your blended, that is synthetic plus cotton, synthetic plus natural, and also it includes nylon as well. Okay, so these are the fabrics which are used. Now, textile industry in our country or in any of the countries, particularly in India, can be divided into two. That is organized sector and decentralized sector. So organized sector, let's say the spinning process or the spinning mills or the composite factories where the production takes place, these two you can put it under the organized sector. In textile sector only. In the textile sector, textile industry, there is organized sector which includes spinning mills and also includes composite factories. And there is also decentralized sector. Decentralized sector, it includes your hand looms, power looms and khadi. Because usually these three processes of hand looms, power looms and khadi, they are usually unorganized. And unorganized will not be the right word. We'll call it decentralized. I hope this scenario is very clear to all of you. Now coming to the initiative which we were talking about. So very big initiative, a flagship initiative, and I would say an umbrella initiative of this particular textile sector in our country has been launched by the government. So cabinet has approved this mega integrated textile region and apparel park. So PM Mitra as we call it. So PM Mitra Park. That is a mega integrated textile region and apparel park. Now close to 4,445 crores have been given for this, allocated for this for the next 5 years. And 7 PM Mitra parks will be created throughout the country. I hope you must have heard about the industrial corridors, industrial parks, or let's say special economic zones. So they're the kind of zones where business activities are very conducive. So in the same lines, a park will be created. Now, not the normal parks which you see, but a textile park. So textile region and apparel park, where every infrastructure which is required in your textile production will be available at one place itself. So from the fabric stage to the stage of exporting that particular textile to the other countries, all the processes will be covered inside one area, inside one park. Of course, it will lower down the costs. It will build competitiveness and make our textile sector more robust. So this is a very brilliant initiative launched by the government. And also you have to remember this 5F vision of PM Modi, right? Of course, now things like this will fetch you marks in mains. So if you write things like this, like 5F initiative in the textile sector answer, if any question on textile sector comes, you have to write this 5F. Now this 5F involves farm to fiber, to factory, to fashion, to foreign. That means from the farm, when the fabric is made, that is from the cotton processing itself, to exporting the textile, final textile, that is the finished good to the other countries, all the things will be there at one place. That is PM Mitra Park. I hope it is very, very clear. So a special purpose vehicle will be made, of course, with the collaboration of state government and the central government, and it will be in a PPP mode, that is public-private partnership mode. I hope it is clear. Now, PM Mitra Park, it will constitute, of course, your core infrastructure. Core infrastructure might include your incubation centers, plug and play facility. That means you just go to that place. Every infrastructure is already available. You just have to use it. So ready to use infrastructure, that is your plug and play facility. Then developed factory sites will be there. Roads will be made, power will be provided, water will be provided, wastewater system, everything would be there. So this is again an integrated park where all the facilities required for that textile sector is available at one place so that textile sector could prosper. And of course, the support infrastructure, for example, workers, hostels, housing, logistics park, warehousing, medical training, skill development facilities, all the things under one roof. So I hope this PM Mitra Park is very, very clear to all of you. So all the challenges which we saw, PM Mitra Park is one of the initiative which is taking care or catering to most of the challenges which we have seen. So that is why this initiative becomes very, very important. Whenever you talk about textile sector, this PM Mitra Park you have to remember. And the features surrounding it you have to remember. Now coming to the second topic, again a very important topic, it is related to caste census in India. So a write-up has appeared in the opinions section which has said that the caste census is being equivalent to casteism. Now we'll understand why this caste census is required, all the controversies surrounding it, why many people oppose it, and why many people are in favor of it. We'll discuss about caste census in detail. Now why it is important for us, our General Studies Paper 1, it categorically specifies salient features of Indian society. And caste system is one of the most important salient feature of Indian society. So I hope this is clear, and now let's move on to the caste system and the caste census particularly. So caste census, first of all, what is a census? Census is the population enumeration exercise. In our country, it happens on every decade. So every 10 years, population census in our country takes place. Now what about caste census? So census is a population enumeration exercise. Caste census means population enumeration exercise based on the caste of that particular individual. So to know that how many people in a country are having which particular caste belong to which caste group, that is what caste census means. Now, according to several experts and several sociologists, economists, every experts, why caste census is very important and what is the need of caste census, we'll discuss that. So again, according to many experts, first thing is that caste census, that is enumerating how many people belong to which caste group, what is their economic background, all the other things, this caste census will lead to identification of deprived and vulnerable sections in the society. Because if this caste census happens, we'll be able to understand that how many people in the particular caste are vulnerable and which castes are most vulnerable and deprived. And if we are able to figure out that who is the most vulnerable, who is deprived, we'll be able to have targeting welfare programs. So we'll target the welfare programs, the social sector initiatives to those particular vulnerable groups. So first identification, then welfare programs given to those groups which have been identified. And of course, if this will be happening, the local governance in our country, right? The local self-government as well, and the overall local governance and the governance scenario in our country can improve. That is a point given by a lot of experts. And of course, it will be very helpful in your policy formulation. If you are making any policy surrounding social sector initiative, upliftment of the vulnerable sections, you will be able to understand and make it in a more nuanced way if you know the caste census data. So that is why it is important to take place and eventually address the poverty and inequality existing in our country. So we are able to determine that these are the vulnerable sections. These castes require more support and we provide targeted support to them. So over the years, we will see that the overall poverty and inequality in our country will come down. So that is also very, very important. And if this happens, that poverty and inequality comes down, eventually inclusive development and inclusive growth in our country would be taking place. So all of these reasons combined tells us why caste census is important and why there is a need of caste census. But now, we have to understand what are the various concerns and challenges surrounding this caste census. So first challenge, that is caste in our country is a very emotive element, right? Because over the generations, the people who are belonging to the lower caste groups, they have been deprived and marginalized from generations. That is why caste in our country and caste system in particular is a very emotive element. And a lot of people's emotions are associated with caste. So having a caste census might be leading to playing with those people's emotions and might be leading to arising the older wounds as well, right? So that is the first point. Also, the next point is that socioeconomic caste census has already taken place in our country, but all the data of it is still to be released. All the data has not been released of that socioeconomic caste census. Also, one more thing, that since caste and class are different, we have to figure out what is the class of the person, that is rich or poor, right? Belonging to which section, vulnerable or not. So associating caste with the class, according to many experts, especially the sociologists, it is very difficult and it is also not required, associating class with caste. So socio-economic caste census, right? So we are associating the class aspect also and the caste aspect also together. And also many of the people say that the socio-economic caste census, which has already earlier been done, the data is unreliable because of various errors, omissions, and the quality standards which have not been followed in the estimation. That is one challenge given by concern raised by a lot of people, and that is why they say that it should not be held because there will be quality issues, there will be errors, there will be omissions. Now, Ministry of Rural Development. Now, it was also involved in some way or the other in conducting the socio-economic caste census. According to many experts, they say why not Registrar General of Census or NSO was involved. So that is one point of concern. And also the point of sensitivity and piracy. Piracy, no, privacy, right? So also the issue of sensitivity and privacy. Now, why? Because if caste census data is released, of course, it is a very sensitive data because it's personal data. And the issue of privacy also comes around. That caste of a particular person is a private information. If it is going in the public, ultimately it will lead to variety of social ramifications as well. So that is also one of the concern. And according to many people, rather than benefiting the caste groups, this caste census might lead to hardening the caste status of that person. So because that person will start ascribing themselves and will start associating themselves with that caste group for the next of the very generations. So it might harden the caste status and the caste stance in our country. That is the concern given by many people, that if caste census happens, it might harden the caste status. And of course, if caste census is happening, you have already seen and you are already starting seeing that caste-based politics will also come around. So if caste becomes an issue in the entire country, of course, politics will not stay behind. So politicization of caste will be happening and casteization of politics will also be happening. So both of the scenarios you will be witnessing. So these are the concerns raised by many. And the question is, what should be the way forward? And the way forward should be that, of course, caste census and caste enumeration should happen because it is a very big element of our society which cannot be overlooked upon, because caste system is deeply rooted into our society. So of course it should be happening, but a very careful and reliable conduct should be there. So careful and reliable conduct is imperative for the caste census to take place. That is a general way forward which we will be writing in our answers. I hope this is very clear to all of you. Now coming to the third topic, it is related to foreign exchange reserves of India. Now recently, India's foreign exchange reserves have jumped to close to $606 billion. That is $606 billion has been the India's foreign exchange reserves as of few days back. Now again, a general studies paper 3 Indian economy section, this topic is very, very important. Now coming to understand that what is this foreign exchange reserves first, right? So you have to understand what is foreign exchange. Now foreign exchange simply means, in simple layman terms, foreign exchange simply means the foreign currencies which are there with a particular country. So let's say in case of India, India's home currency is Indian rupees. India's home currency is of course Indian rupees. And all the currencies other than this, which are held by India, are the foreign exchange. Foreign exchange. And when the reserves of these foreign exchange are made by the Reserve Bank of our country, then you call those reserves as foreign exchange reserves. I hope it is very, very clear to all of you. So foreign exchange reserves involves the reserves made by the Reserve Bank of India of all the foreign currencies which we own, right? And why do we have these reserves? We have these reserves because we have to import from other countries. Now, if we have to import from other countries, for example, oil, we can't pay them in rupees. They'll not be taking rupees. Of course, they'll be taking some internationally accepted currency, and that is probably the dollar. So that is why we maintain most of our foreign exchange reserves in dollar. Now, how much is the foreign exchange reserve in our country right now? So as of 8th of December 2023, $606 billion is the foreign exchange reserve of India as of say 8th of December 2023. And this foreign exchange reserve is the fifth largest after China, Japan, Switzerland and Russia. So India's foreign exchange reserve is the fifth largest in the entire world. Now normally, there's a tendency that students believe foreign exchange reserve will include only foreign currencies, but that is really not the case. Foreign exchange reserves of a country will include, of course, the foreign currency assets, that is the foreign currencies, but also the gold held by the RBI. That is also part of foreign exchange reserves, and also the special drawing rights of that country with the International Monetary Fund. So special drawing rights at International Monetary Fund, that is also part of your foreign exchange reserve. Now, on some other day, we'll discuss what is the special drawing rights of the IMF and also IMF in detail. But right now, you just have to know that foreign currency assets, gold reserves, and special drawing rights in IMF, and also the reserve tranche with the IMF. So, inclusion of all these four things makes us our foreign exchange reserve. So makes the foreign exchange reserve of a country, not just the foreign currency assets. I hope this is very, very clear to all of you. Now, what is the role of this foreign exchange reserve? The primary role is that it acts as a backup fund. Whenever you need to import something, the foreign exchange reserves you can use in order to import the goods and services from outside. And also meet external debt obligations. So let's say if you have taken loan from abroad, you need to repay the loan as well, and you need to repay the loan in the foreign currency only. You need to repay the interest as well. So the foreign debt which you have taken. So in order to meet that obligation of foreign debt, you need a reserve, and that is your foreign exchange reserve. Also for stability of exchange rates. See, exchange rate determination, once you'll see, the foreign exchange reserves play a very important role in exchange rate. right? And to stabilize exchange rate, there is a pertinent need for a country to maintain large number of foreign exchange reserves, right? And which is the most internationally accepted currency? Of course, it is the US dollar. That is why most of the countries maintain foreign exchange reserve in US dollars. Now, international credibility and intentional credibility. So you need to bring in intentional credibility to your country, and of course, international credibility to also your country. Because if foreign exchange reserves of a country is high, of course, the rating agencies, they rate that country also very, very highly, especially the credit rating agencies. So internationally, our image also improves, our credibility is also there, and we are doing it in an intentional way, right? I hope this is clear. Now, the issue of internationalization of rupee is also related to it. That is, now we are trying to make rupee an international asset, so that Indian rupee should be used in international transactions. Of course, there is a long way ahead, long road ahead for us to take, but still we are navigating on that path, that we are trying to make rupee an internationally accepted currency. Because if rupee becomes an internationally accepted currency, our requirement for holding such huge foreign exchange reserve will lower down, because Indian rupees will be able to use in order to make foreign country transactions. I hope this is very clear to all of you. Now, just few factors which will be determining your foreign exchange reserves. We'll study that very quickly, and then we'll move on to the next topic. So, foreign portfolio inflows. So, foreign portfolio investment, if they come into our country, of course, foreign exchange reserve is going to increase or decrease. The likely answer is that they are going to increase. So, increase in foreign exchange reserve because of the FPI inflows. Dip in crude oil prices. So, crude oil prices from the Middle East, if there is a lower price, so we need to use less of our reserves. So, the foreign exchange reserve of our country, they are going to increase, because less of our foreign exchange reserves will be used because of the decrease in price of oil. Now, import savings. So, reduction in imports, if we do not import a lot, because if we import a lot, we are using the foreign exchange reserve a lot. But if we reduce our import, of course, it will increase our foreign exchange reserves. Now, FDI inflows, foreign portfolio inflows, if it is increasing the foreign exchange reserves, foreign direct investments, of course, they are also going to increase the foreign exchange reserves. And last but not the least, dip in gold imports. So again, import savings in the same way dip in gold imports. So gold is a big import component of India. So dip in gold import, it increases the foreign exchange reserve, because earlier we were importing more, now we are importing less. So that means there is more money, or there is a more currency or more capital in our foreign exchange reserves. That is why foreign exchange reserves are bound to increase. I hope those factors affecting foreign exchange reserves are also very clear to all of you. Now, coming to the fourth topic, that is the developed country goal of our country. Now, recently, Raghuram Rajanji, the former RBI governor, has remarked that India would continue to remain a lower middle economy by 2047 if the growth rate of our country on a yearly basis is not over 6%. So it's close to 6%, less than 6%. That means we'll remain a lower income country, lower middle income country by 2047. We will not become a higher income country if the growth is not above 6%. Now, why it is important? Again, for a general studies paper 3 Indian economy section, this becomes very, very important. So we have to know, first of all, these income categorization of the countries. So World Bank categorizes the countries based on various income groups, and they take into account your per capita income. And per capita income is nothing but the national income of a country divided by the population. So per capita income is the national income divided by the population. So national income divided by the population, per capita income. So on the basis of per capita income, this is the latest data which we see, that if a country is having per capita income lesser than $1135, so lesser than $1135, $1,135, that country is a lower income country. And if the per capita income hovers around 1136 to 4465, that is 1136 to 4465, that is the range. If the per capita income of a country is in this range, that country is categorized as lower middle income country. Now, if it is more than your 4466 and lesser than $1,345 per capita income of a country, it will be known as upper middle income country, right? So between your 4,466 and your 13,845, between that range per capita income, the country is your upper middle income country. And for a country to be classified as higher income country, the per capita income should be more than $13,845. I hope this is very, very clear to all of you. Now, the per capita income of India, right now it is close to $2,600. Not the accurate, but the close to $2,600 has been the recent per capita income of our country. Now, you have to tell me in the comment section, let me know in the comment section that what do you think India would fall under which of these categories? Lower income, lower middle income, or upper middle income, or higher income country? You have to tell me in the comment section, let me know that this is India's per capita income. So, in which section India would be falling? Now, why this India becoming a developed country as a goal is important for us? Because Prime Minister in Panch Pran, that is the 5 woes, in one of the very historic speeches, our Prime Minister said that we'll be taking Panch Pran, that is 5 woes, which needs to be completed by the year 2047. That is when we achieve 100 years of our independence. And amongst those 5 prans, 5 woes, first pran or first promise, first woe is that India should be becoming a developed country in the next 25 years. So that is the goal which we are having for the next 25 years, that India is going to become developed. And the remaining other pledges for 2047, it's of course removing any sign of servility. Now you have to let me know in the comment section, what do you mean by this word, servility? Now, of course, it's an interesting word. You just figure it out. Just research on this, and why a Prime Minister used this word, you have to understand that as well. So that is your homework. You let me know in the comment section what is the meaning of this word. So this is one of the pledges. And also one more pledge is pride in our heritage, to ensure unity, and to fulfill our duties as the citizens of a country. Now, what can we do in order to make India a developed country? So there are certain measures which I have written down. Of course, these measures are very, very generic in nature. In your answers, if you are writing, you need to write substantial points, substantiating it with the data, fact, statistics, or any of the committees, any reports, any backing. So you need to solidly back whatever you write. But here, only general points I've mentioned, right? So first is by controlling rapid increasing population. So population control measures needs to be taken in order for India to become developed. Eradicating poverty. Of course, we need to eradicate poverty. We need to reduce levels of inequality. We need to increase our literacy rate, education levels as well. We need to check unemployment, to reduce unemployment and increase the avenues of employment. We need to eliminate pollution as well. We need to be environmentally sensitive. Then only our growth will be sustainable. We need to check the crime rates as well. So criminal rate in our country should be lower. Adopting zero tolerance against corruption, political corruption or private corruption, any kind of corruption, we need to have a policy of zero tolerance against it, and bringing back the black money which has been stashed abroad. So because of these things, if we ensure these things, in order to become a developed country, of course, we'll be able to achieve that target if we are able to ensure that these things happen. Now, let us see again the division based on World Trade Organization. Now, World Trade Organization, they allow the member countries themselves to classify themselves as developed or developing. However, other members can challenge, of course, the decision of the country to be classified as developing. Only the least developed country status is designated by UN. So UN designates only the least developed countries, and WTO in itself, they allow the member countries themselves to classify themselves into each of the category. So developing category, who all are the members? Of course, India is developing, China, Russia, Brazil, South Africa, South Korea. And developed countries, US is developed, European Union, Japan, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. Right? They are the developed countries. Now coming to the least developed countries, who are the countries which are least developed? Of course, they are given by the UN, United Nations. So Afghanistan is least developed, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Myanmar, Nepal, and South Sudan. So these are the list of the countries who are least developed. Of course, there are a lot of other countries, but this is just a list to glance through. Now, the last topic, but not the least, is related to the Election Commission of India. Now, recently, the government has brought an amendment to give the current and former Election Commission members protection from litigation. Now, according to our GS paper 2, appointment to constitutional posts, right, and constitutional bodies, responsibilities of them is very, very important for us to understand. That is why this topic becomes important. So we'll be having a cursory glance and a cursory overview about Election Commission in general. So Election Commission in India, it's under Article 324 of our Indian Constitution. And it's a permanent body, Election Commission of India. It's an independent body, and if it's mentioned in the Constitution, that means it's a constitutional body as well. That is why it is very important, right? And what's the main role of Election Commission of India? The main role is to ensure free and fair elections in our country. So they're having superintendence, direction and control in elections of whom? In the elections of parliament, in the elections of state legislature. Parliament means that of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. So state legislature, then elections of president of our country and elections of vice president of our country. So in all these elections, Election Commission of India is having superintendence, direction and the power to control the elections. Now, what is the composition of Election Commission? So Election Commission will consist of Chief Election Commissioner and various other election commissioners. They will be, of course, appointed by the President of our country. Now, Chief Election Commissioner will act as a chairman. And of course, there can be regional commissioners as well, which can be appointed. Now, the service and tenure conditions of the Election Commissioner and Chief Election Commissioner is to be decided by the President of our country. Now, recently in the 2023 Supreme Court judgment, the Supreme Court judgment said that the election commissioners will be appointed by a committee, by the advice of a committee. They will be appointed, of course, by the President of our country, but on the advice of a committee. That committee will consist of Prime Minister of our country, Leader of Opposition in Lok Sabha, and Chief Justice of India. So these three people will recommend, these three individuals will form a committee and recommend to the President that who should be Chief Election Commissioner, election commissioners. I hope this is clear. Now, the evolution of Election Commission. So 1950 to 1989, of course, it was a single member commission. After that, in 1989 October, 2 more election commissioners were added. 1990 and 1993, again, the earlier existing rule was established. But eventually, right now, we are having Chief Election Commissioner and 2 other election commissioners. All are having equal powers. Their salary is equal, allowances are equal as to Supreme Court judges. So all the election commissioners, the Chief Election Commissioner, they're having equal powers, equal salaries, equal allowances as compared to a Supreme Court judge. And their removal process is also similar to that of a Supreme Court judge. And the matters in the case of Chief Election Commissioner and election commissioners, the matters, if 3 people are there, matters needs to be decided by a majority. And what is the tenure of them? Tenure is 6 years or 65 years of age, whichever is earlier. I hope this election commission and how the formulation of election commission is there, what is the role played by them, the structural composition, it is very, very clear to all of you. So all the very best. I hope you learned something from this lecture. I hope it was enjoyable for you as well. So all the very best to all of you and have a very nice day. So good luck.